You people don't run companies like this." Richard Vane's words cracked through the boardroom like glass under pressure. He said it slowly, deliberately, each syllable dipped in the same arrogance that had built his career. Then, without breaking eye contact, he snapped Amara Lewis's business card in half. The tiny sound echoed louder than it should have inside the top floor of rival corp headquarters. Amara didn't move. 32 years old, CEO of Nova Edge Technologies, she stood in a white suit so clean it reflected the blue light from the skyline outside. Her calm wasn't submission, it was strategy. Richard leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over a steel grey suit that screamed old money confidence. "Look," he continued, "I appreciate the ambition, but this merger talk, come on, our shareholders expect certain optics, you understand." That last phrase, "you understand," hung in the air like a veiled threat, dressed up as civility. A low chuckle spread across the table. All men, all over 40. They'd already decided who Amara was before she walked in. Too young, too black, too untraditional. Amara took the silence that followed and used it. She set her tablet on the glossy table, the Nova Edge logo pulsing faintly on the screen like a living thing. "I understand perfectly," she said. "You're not rejecting my numbers, Mr. Vane. You're rejecting my reflection." The laughter died a little. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now, back to Amara. Richard gave a theatrical sigh. "Let's stay professional," he said, trying to sound benevolent. "You have potential. Maybe start smaller, pilot projects, joint ventures, something that fits your scale." That pause before scale was the insult. Everyone heard it. Jamal Turner, 31, the youngest analyst in the room, shifted uneasily. He'd seen this act before, the polite dismissal wrapped in mentorship language. He pressed record on the tablet balanced against his knee, more instinct than rebellion. Amara smiled just enough to unsettle them. "Our scale," she said, "isn't the problem." Richard reached for the folder in front of him, flipped through her printed proposal, and then did something that froze even his own assistant. He tore the cover page in half and dropped it into the trash can beside him. "Meeting over," he said. The gesture was precise, rehearsed. A man used to finishing conversations by ending them. Amara stayed seated. "You didn't read the appendix," she said quietly. Richard frowned. "Excuse me?" "You'll want to." She tapped her tablet. The wall display flickered, and Rival Corp's own financial dashboard appeared on the big screen. Rows of numbers scrolled, red turning to green, losses flipping to credits. Richard's jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" "Public data," she answered, "and something called accountability." A murmur swept the table. One board member, Denise Hartman, 50, finance chief, shifted her glasses, studying the numbers. "Richard, she's right. The convertible debt from last quarter." Richard cut her off. "That's confidential." Amara's voice stayed calm. "It was, until your filing this morning." She paused. "Clause 0 went active the moment that document hit the SEC feed." "Clause what?" She slid a small black USB drive across the table. The letter R was engraved on its shell. "R for rival," she said. "The same symbol your lawyers used when they registered your emergency credit line through one of our shell funds." Richard blinked, trying to piece it together. "That's impossible." "Nothing impossible about reading contracts," Amara replied. "You signed the buyout yourself. You just didn't realize who the lender was." The air changed, subtle but undeniable. Jamal stopped recording. He didn't need proof anymore. He needed to breathe. Denise whispered, "Richard, if that's true, Nova Edge owns." "Enough!" Richard slammed his palm on the table. The sound startled everyone. "I'm not being lectured by a—" He caught himself mid-word, but the damage was done. Amara rose slowly. "Say it," she said. He swallowed hard, face flushed. "By an outsider." Her expression didn't shift. "Outsiders build what insiders fear," she said. She turned toward the glass wall, the city's neon reflections running across her suit like lightning. "Every building you see out there runs on Nova Edge microgrids. You use our infrastructure daily. You just didn't bother to know who designed it." No one spoke. The only sound was the rain beginning to tick against the windows. Richard tried to gather his papers, his hands shaking slightly, but Amara's final words pinned him in place. "This isn't a proposal, Mr. Vane. It's a notification." The USB light blinked once, blue, then steady white. Across the conference table, screens flickered as an automatic email populated inboxes across the company. Subject: ownership transfer, effective immediately. From Nova Edge Technologies. Richard stared, the colour draining from his face. What did you do? Amara met his eyes, her voice quiet but absolute. Just balanced the optics. Thunder rolled above the city, deep, certain, like the sound of something permanent breaking. For a moment, no one in the room breathed. The storm outside wasn't the only thing rumbling. There was a tension now, electric and invisible, spreading through the floor. Richard Vane stared at his laptop screen as if it had betrayed him. The Rival Corp logo was flickering, one frame of blue, one of white, alternating like a failing heartbeat. "This is some kind of stunt," he muttered. "You hacked us." Amara didn't answer. She simply looked around the room, slow and deliberate. Every face told a different version of denial. Disbelief, confusion, fear. "I didn't hack anything," she said finally. "I just built something you didn't bother to understand." She turned toward the projector screen, tapped her tablet once, and the display changed. A flowchart appeared. Timelines, signatures, legal documents. It wasn't showmanship. It was precision. Before Richard could respond, Denise Hartman, the 50-year-old CFO, spoke up. "Richard, she's right. Clause 0 is in the contract. It's a conversion trigger, activated automatically when our line of credit matured." Richard spun toward her, eyes wide. "That line of credit was temporary." Denise cut him off. "Temporary debt that became equity. And equity means ownership." The room went silent again. You could hear the hum of the lights. At the far end of the table, Jamal Turner, 31, whispered almost to himself, "She played chess while you were still arguing about checkers." Richard glared at him. "Turn off that device before I—" Amara raised a hand. "Don't. He's fine." Her voice was calm but commanding. "You're used to controlling the narrative. Not today." Then she leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said it clearly enough for every camera in the boardroom to hear. "Clause 0 wasn't written for you, Richard. It was written because of you." The air shifted again. The rain on the windows turned harder, like applause for the inevitable. She remembered a different room, 8 years earlier. Same kind of board table, same smell of espresso and fear. 24 investors, all white, all male, all telling her Nova Edge was too ambitious to be realistic. Back then, she'd smiled the same calm smile and she'd walked out. But before leaving, she'd said, "When the time comes, I'll buy your company, not because I want it, but because I want to end it." And now, here she was. Back in the present, Richard's assistant, Ellen Briggs, 45, rushed in from the hallway. "Sir, legal's on line 1, she said. "They're saying the SEC filing shows Nova Edge listed as primary shareholder." "Impossible," he barked. Amara looked at her watch. "Right on schedule." She tapped her earpiece. "Naya status?" Her assistant's voice came through, measured, confident. "Ownership transfer confirmed. Corporate registry updated in real time. Rival Corp is now under Nova Edge Holdings. All senior access is being locked for audit." Richard shot to his feet. "You can't do that." Amara tilted her head slightly. "I just did." He slammed his palm on the table again, harder this time. "This is manipulation." "No," she said. "This is accountability. You ran your company on arrogance and outdated contracts. I just read them carefully." Denise let out a slow breath. "Richard," she said quietly, "she's not lying." The sound of phones buzzing filled the air, emails, notifications, the echo of a system recognizing a new master. Amara looked toward the glass wall, city lights reflecting against her face. "You spent decades convincing the world that people like me didn't belong here," she said softly. "So I built something you couldn't keep out." Richard's voice cracked. "You tricked us." She shook her head. "No, you underestimated me. Again. Before we continue, tell me something. Have you ever been in a room where power shifted without anyone raising their voice? Drop your city in the comments below. These stories matter because silence, sometimes, is the loudest justice. Now back to the story." Ellen's phone rang again. She hesitated. "Sir, it's the press." Richard's voice faltered. "Already?" "Already," Amara repeated. "You built Rival Corp on publicity. You'll end it on transparency." She turned to Jamal, who was now standing. "Mr. Turner," she said. "You've been recording, yes?" He nodded, nervous but steady. "Yes, ma'am." "Good, keep it. It's evidence now." Richard's complexion turned pale. "Evidence of what?" "Hostile bias, verbal misconduct, public breach of ethics. Amara replied. "You mocked a CEO mid-negotiation and destroyed a binding document on camera. That's not business, that's behavior." Denise looked down at the table, whispering almost to herself, "She's not here to buy us, she's here to cleanse us." Amara caught the words and smiled faintly. "Exactly." She rose from her chair, smooth, composed, unhurried. "This boardroom has been your empire for 20 years, Richard. Today it becomes my classroom. Every person in this room will learn what consequence looks like when it doesn't shout." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her silhouette against the skyline. Behind her, the company logo on the main screen flickered one last time and then changed. The blue R of Rival Corp dissolved into the white N of Nova Edge. One by one, employee badges lost access. Doors locked automatically with mechanical precision. The security system chirped, then fell silent. Richard stood frozen, his authority evaporating in real time. Amara turned to the group, her voice measured, final. "Gentlemen, and Miss Hartman, I won't drag this out. Effective immediately, all executive functions are suspended pending internal audit. A new board will be appointed within 48 hours. No anger, no triumph, just order." Richard tried one last gasp of control. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I didn't walk in," she interrupted softly. "I arrived." And with that, she picked up her tablet, tucked it under her arm, and walked toward the glass door. Behind her, the reflection of the skyline shimmered on the polished floor. One city, two empires, and a woman who now owned them both. The rain hadn't stopped. It drummed against the glass like a warning the city didn't listen to. Inside the boardroom, the silence that followed Amara's exit felt heavier than any storm outside. Richard Vane stood frozen, one hand still gripping the back of his chair as if it could anchor him to the world that just disappeared. His voice finally broke the stillness. She can't own us. Someone call legal. Call corporate." Denise Hartman didn't move. Her phone was already lighting up. Emails, alerts, calendar invites, all from Nova Edge Systems. The corporate logo now sat where Rival Corps used to be. She turned her screen toward him, face drained of colour. She already does. Richard stared, eyes wide, disbelief curdling into anger. "You think she can waltz in here with a USB drive and rewrite ownership law? That's absurd." "No," Jamal said quietly, standing near the window. "What's absurd is thinking power still looks like you." Richard whipped around. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Jamal said, voice steady despite his shaking hands. "You told her she didn't belong, and now the building's running on her network. That's the most poetic justice I've ever seen." The room shifted. Denise exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. "I warned you, Richard. Clause 0 wasn't a rumour. You dismissed it because you didn't want to read the paperwork signed by a woman half your age." "Half my?" he snapped. "She's what, 30? 32, Denise corrected. And apparently 30 steps ahead. He turned toward the glass wall again. The skyline outside was glowing in the dark, buildings alive with the hum of Nova Edge's microgrids. Even the Rival Corp tower across the street had begun to flicker with the new blue-white logo. It was over. Meanwhile, down in the lobby, a different kind of storm was gathering. News outlets had already picked up the SEC filing. On every screen, headlines blazed across financial networks. Breaking, Nova Edge acquires Rival Corp in $0 takeover. Silent deal, massive power shift. Employees huddled around monitors, whispering, checking their company emails only to find their logins disabled. The front desk receptionist, mid-30s, was on the phone with IT. "It says my credentials don't exist anymore. No, I'm literally standing here." Security guards exchanged uncertain looks as new access codes appeared in their system. Signed N. Torres, Chief of Operations, Nova Edge. Upstairs, Amara had already reached the elevator. She stood inside, calm, hand resting against her tablet. The reflection of the city wrapped around her like armour. "Nia," she said softly into her earpiece, "status report." "All systems stable. Ownership confirmed. Press engagement approved for tomorrow at 9, her assistant replied. Amara smiled faintly. "Good. No statements tonight. Let them talk first." "Yes, ma'am." The elevator doors closed and the noise of the floor above faded into a dull hum. Back in the boardroom, Richard was pacing. "We sue her. We challenge the filing. This can't be final." Denise shook her head. "It's airtight. She didn't take the company, Richard. You gave it to her when you converted that loan last quarter. Nova Edge owned your debt. You should have known." He slammed his fist against the wall. "She tricked me." Denise looked up sharply. No, she outsmarted you. There's a difference. Richard glared, chest heaving. You're with her, aren't you? I'm with competence, she said. Jamal couldn't help it. He laughed, short and bitter. That line's going viral. Richard's eyes narrowed. What are you still doing here? Watching history, Jamal replied. Because someday, people like me will walk into rooms like this and not have to prove we deserve air. Richard pointed toward the door. Get out! Jamal nodded slowly. Gladly. He picked up his tablet and left, the automatic lock hissing behind him like a period at the end of a sentence. Before we continue, have you ever seen arrogance collapse in real time? Drop your city in the comments below. These stories hit because they remind us respect is not optional, it's earned. Now back to Amara. By the time she stepped into the parking garage, the storm had softened to drizzle. Her car, a quiet black sedan, not flashy, not meant to impress, was already waiting. She slid into the back seat, exhaled, and for the first time all day, allowed herself a moment of silence. Not relief, clarity. Her driver, Caleb Monroe, 38, looked at her in the rearview mirror. You good, boss? Amara smiled faintly. Better than good. They finally heard me. Caleb chuckled, without raising your voice once. That's the only way they listen, she said. Make them uncomfortable with calm. Her tablet buzzed. A message from Naya appeared. SEC confirmation complete. Public shares transferring. Rival board requesting emergency meeting. Amara typed a single response. Let them meet. I already decided. She closed the tablet and looked out at the skyline, the same buildings that once ignored her proposals now running on her technology. 8 years ago, she couldn't even get a meeting at Rival Corp. Today, she owned it before dinner. Power didn't change her tone, it changed her audience. Back upstairs, reporters were already gathering at the lobby entrance. Cameras flashed, employees whispered her name. And in the penthouse boardroom, Richard VANE finally sat down, his voice barely a whisper. She played us all. Denise looked out at the rain. No, she said. She proved what happens when silence learns strategy. The lights flickered once. The Rival logo faded from the wall entirely. Down in the garage, Amara's car pulled into the night, city lights glinting off her white suit like truth catching fire. The next morning broke grey and still, the kind of silence that only follows a night of headlines. Across downtown, every billboard screen that once displayed Rival Corp now shimmered with a single new emblem, a silver N woven through blue light, Nova Edge. In the lobby of what used to be Rival's headquarters, cameras lined up like soldiers. Reporters clutched microphones, producers whispered countdowns. Security had tripled overnight, though no one knew who they were really protecting anymore. At 8:59 a.m., the glass elevator opened. Amara Lewis, in a black suit this time, clean lines, no jewelry, stepped out with the unhurried calm of someone who'd already won. Nia Torres, 34, her chief of operations, walked beside her, tablet in hand. Press waiting in the atrium, Nia said. Board members still inside the conference room. They want to make a joint statement. Amara's tone didn't shift. They'll wait. Legal confirmed full transfer. You're the sole executive authority. I know. She paused near the lobby's reflection pool. The building's name, Rival, was still etched into the marble floor, half covered by a temporary banner. Amara looked down at it, then stepped squarely across the first letter. Let's begin. Cameras flashed as she entered the atrium. Reporters surged forward, questions firing like static. Ms. Lewis, was this a hostile takeover? Did you manipulate the system? Was race a factor in your treatment by the previous board? Amara stopped at the podium, letting the noise swirl for a few seconds before raising one hand. Silence rolled through the space like a slow tide. She leaned into the microphone. I didn't come here for hostility. I came for honesty. That alone earned a pause. Yesterday wasn't a stunt. It was a correction. For years, Rival Corp operated under contracts it didn't understand, dismissing the people who built the systems it depended on. When Nova Edge provided emergency capital last quarter, those agreements included a standard clause, Clause 0, triggering ownership transfer upon maturity. A murmur rippled through the room. Every journalist was scribbling. Clause 0 wasn't hidden, she continued. It was ignored, like most opportunities given to people who don't fit the mold. The tone in her voice wasn't sharp, it was surgical. I was told, in this very building, that people like me don't run companies like this. Yesterday I decided to prove that statement right by running 2. Flashbulbs burst. At the back of the room, Denise Hartman stood among the newly reinstated staff. She didn't speak, but the faintest smile crossed her face. Jamal, now positioned near the tech booth, captured the feed for Nova Edge's live stream. Before we continue, if you've ever been underestimated and kept your calm until the truth spoke louder, drop your city in the comments below. These moments remind us that quiet power changes everything. Now back to Amara. Richard Vane was watching from the mezzanine balcony above. He wasn't supposed to be there. Security had revoked his clearance. But habit dies slower than ego. He leaned against the rail, pale and rigid, listening to the woman who had dismantled his legacy in one day. Amara's voice carried upward without ever needing to rise. This merger isn't about revenge, it's about rebuilding. Rival Corp will be restructured into Nova Edge Industrial, dedicated to sustainable energy technology and inclusive leadership. Every employee retained will undergo equity training. Every contract will be reviewed for ethical compliance. A reporter shouted, "Miss Lewis, will Mr. Vane remain in any capacity?" Amara's pause was deliberate. Mr. Vane will remain exactly where history leaves him. Gasps, a few chuckles, the sound of justice in motion. She continued, "Let this be clear. Silence was never weakness. It was strategy. Power doesn't always announce itself. It reveals itself when the room stops laughing." Cameras flashed again. The quote would be everywhere within the hour. Back upstairs, Richard sank into a chair outside the empty boardroom, hands shaking. Denise walked past without slowing down. "Don't," he said hoarsely. "Don't say it." She stopped anyway. "You should have listened," she replied. "You spent 20 years confusing control with competence." He stared at her, eyes rimmed red. "You think she's some kind of hero?" "No," Denise said. "I think she's inevitable." Downstairs, Amara concluded the press event. "Nova Edge is not here to erase the past," she said. "We're here to evolve it. Everyone deserves a chance to prove that ethics and profit can share a table." She stepped away from the podium as applause broke, not loud but genuine. Naya handed her a glass of water, whispering, "Social feeds already viral, 50 million views in 4 hours." Amara took a sip, smiled faintly. "Let them talk. I'm done explaining." "Next steps?" Nia asked. "Rebuild the leadership, rehire those they overlooked." And Nia, "Yes. No more glass ceilings in this building, literally. Replace the conference room roof with solar glass. Let them look up and see transparency." Nia grinned. "That's poetic." "It's practical," Amara said. "Sunlight exposes everything." Hours later, the building buzzed under a new rhythm. Workers removed the old signage. PR teams prepped rebranding decks. In every corner, people whispered the same phrase. She really did it. And outside, across the skyline, the first dawn light broke through the storm clouds, reflecting off the new Nova Edge emblem like a quiet promise. Amara watched from her office window, arms folded. "They thought silence meant surrender," she murmured, "but silence is where strategy learns to breathe." Behind her, Naya said softly, "And now?" Amara's answer was simple. "Now we build louder." The conference room that once symbolized Rival Corp's power now felt like a mausoleum. The blinds were drawn, the air smelled faintly of burnt coffee and defeat. Only 5 people remained around the oval table, remnants of a dynasty that no longer existed. Richard Vane sat at the head as if muscle memory alone could keep the seat his. His tie was loose, his voice hoarse from a night without sleep. "We're not done," he muttered. "This isn't the end." Across from him, Denise Hartman, 50, placed a folder on the table. "Richard, it's over. The filing's cleared. Nova Edge owns 100% of our equity." Richard slapped the table. "Not my equity. I built this company. They can't just erase me." Denise didn't flinch. "You didn't read your own contracts, Richard. The erasure was self-inflicted." The others, Paul Everett, 61, former chief legal officer, Marcia Doyle, 50, head of operations, and Leon Chen, 47, investor liaison, sat in uneasy silence. None of them dared meet Richard's eyes. "I won't let her destroy my legacy," he said. "We'll fight this. We'll leak the documents, go public, tell them she manipulated the system." Marcia finally spoke. "And risk exposing the emails where you called her the diversity stunt?" Richard froze. Paul sighed. "We've all said things we regret." "No," Denise said coldly. "You all said what you believed." The words hung heavy, and no one argued. Downstairs, the atmosphere was the opposite. The lobby buzzed with new energy. Employees reactivated, IT systems updated, Nova Edge banners replacing rival logos in real time. Young engineers in hoodies crossed paths with former rival staff in pressed suits. The transition was messy, alive, human. Through it all, Jamal Turner, 31, now promoted to interim communications lead, moved between groups with a calm sense of mission. He'd gone from silent observer to bridge builder overnight. Morning brief in 5, he said to a cluster of nervous employees. New culture, new policies. Ms. Lewis wants everyone to be part of it. Someone asked, "Is it true she's keeping us?" Jamal smiled. "If you believe in what's next, yes." Upstairs again, the boardroom door burst open. Amara Lewis entered, followed by Nia Torres and 2 corporate council members. She didn't sit, she didn't need to. "Mr. Vane," she said evenly, "I see you've chosen to stay." Richard rose to his feet. "You think you can waltz in here and take everything I built? You don't understand how this industry works." Amara's expression stayed calm. "I understand exactly how it works. Men like you wrote the rules, and people like me learned them, then rewrote them." Denise looked down to hide a smile. Richard's jaw tightened. "You humiliated me in front of the press." "No," Amara said, stepping closer. "You humiliated yourself when you underestimated the person across the table. I just turned on the lights." Leon shifted uncomfortably. "What happens to us now?" Amara turned to him. "Those who contributed in good faith will stay. Those who fostered discrimination, silence, or financial misconduct won't." Paul Everett spoke up, nervous. "You can't just purge leadership overnight. It'll destabilize the company." Amara raised an eyebrow. "Destabilize what?" "The same leadership that buried innovation and drove morale into the ground." She looked around the room, her voice sharpening. "I'm not cleaning house out of spite. I'm rebuilding it from the foundation. Rival Corp died because arrogance replaced accountability." Richard slammed a fist on the table. "And you think you can fix that?" Amara leaned in, eyes locked on his. "I already did." Before we continue, think about this. Have you ever watched someone try to fight the truth after the evidence already won? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you believe that silence can still deliver justice, hit like. Now, back to the boardroom. Nia placed a stack of envelopes on the table. "Termination notices," she said simply, "effective immediately." Marcia whispered, "All of us?" "Only those who need to go," Amara replied. "The rest will transition under Nova Edge Industrial." Richard ripped open his envelope, scanned it, and laughed bitterly. "You can't fire a founder." Amara smiled faintly. "Founders aren't above accountability. Ask the employees you underpaid, the women you overlooked, the partners you dismissed. You built an empire on exclusion. I'm building one on equity." He looked at her, searching for weakness, some crack in the calm. There was none. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "No," she replied, "you will." Amara turned to Denise. "You've shown integrity through all this. Stay. Lead finance. You'll help me build transparency from the inside." Denise nodded, emotion catching in her throat. "Thank you." As Amara and Nia exited, Richard's voice followed, desperate. "You think the world will just forget rival?" Amara paused at the door. "They already have." In the corridor, Nia exhaled. "That could have gone worse." Amara smiled. "It did, just not for us." They stepped into the elevator. Through the glass wall, the building's new logo glowed against the skyline. "It's strange," Nia said quietly, "watching power end in a whisper." Amara looked out at the city. "Power never ends," she said. "It transfers to whoever's ready to hold it without fear." The elevator doors slid shut with a sound like closure itself. By noon, the atrium was full. Over 300 employees, engineers, assistants, custodial staff, executives, stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the towering glass ceiling. The air buzzed with curiosity and unease. The rival Corp nameplate had already been taken down. In its place, a large silver banner stretched across the balcony. Nova Edge Industrial. Some clapped when they saw it. Others just stared, uncertain of what the new world would look like. At exactly 12:05 p.m., Amara Lewis stepped onto the balcony. She didn't take the microphone right away. She just looked down at the crowd, the same faces that once belonged to a culture of silence. Her expression was calm, steady, but her presence carried weight. When she finally spoke, the microphone caught her voice like a thread through air. "Good afternoon. I know this building feels different today. It should." The room quieted instantly. "This isn't a takeover speech," she continued. It's a beginning. Behind her stood Nia Torres, 34, tablet in hand, Jamal Turner, 31, now official communications director, and Denise Hartman, 50, newly appointed chief financial officer. Each one had chosen to stand, not sit, beside her. Symbolic, deliberate. Amara looked down at the employees below. I know what many of you are thinking. What happens now? Do we still have jobs? Do we still belong here? The answer is simple. If you believe in integrity, yes. If you believe in progress, yes. If you believe in equity, yes. She paused to let the words settle. When I walked into this company yesterday, I was told I didn't belong. That phrase isn't new to me. It's followed me my whole career. But every time someone said it, I built something that made it obsolete. A low murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you've ever been told you don't belong, remember, sometimes that's the first sign you're meant to change the room. Now, back to Amara. She gestured toward the massive glass ceiling above. We're literally replacing this roof. It'll be made of solar glass, transparent, renewable, and open. That's the symbol of this new chapter. Transparency and power working together. A few people in the front clapped. Then more. The sound built slowly, organically. Amara nodded once, not to bask in it, but to anchor it. We're implementing new equity policies starting today. Salaries will be audited for fairness. Leadership positions will open based on merit, not on who sits closest to the old hierarchy. Denise stepped forward. Finance will publish quarterly transparency reports available to every employee. No more hidden bonuses or silent penalties. Jamal added, and communications will stay open. Anonymous reporting, real-time feedback, and shared recognition. We rise together or we don't rise at all. Applause broke louder this time. Amara turned to Nia. Show them. Nia tapped her tablet and the large LED wall behind the balcony came to life. Photos filled the screen, images of young women in labs, older engineers training interns, teams working side by side, names underlined with the title Employee Shareholder Program. Every one of you will receive equity, Amara announced, because ownership creates accountability and dignity. The room erupted. Shocked gasps, cheers, even tears from employees who had never been given anything but silence. Richard VANE had watched his people through control. Amara watched hers through belief. Down near the front, a maintenance supervisor named Samuel Wright, 45, raised his hand. Ma'am, he said hesitantly, I've been here 18 years. Nobody ever asked what we needed. Why now? Amara smiled softly, because you deserve to be asked. And because power without listening is just noise. The crowd clapped again, louder this time, but not everyone was convinced. In the back corner, a small group of former rival managers whispered among themselves. One muttered, "This won't last. She's idealistic." Another said, "She's emotional, you'll see." Amara noticed them. She didn't call them out. She just met their gaze briefly and said, "Change doesn't need everyone to believe in it, just enough people to make it inevitable." That line landed like quiet thunder. Outside, news crews gathered again, broadcasting the scene live. Commentators on morning shows debated whether Amara's leadership was revolutionary or reckless. Back inside, Nia leaned toward her. "You've got them, Amara. Every one of them." Amara didn't smile yet. "Winning the room isn't the goal, Nia. Changing it is." Jamal whispered, "We'll clip that line for the social feed." She shook her head. "Don't. Let the work speak first." As the meeting closed, she said one final thing. "This building was once a fortress. From now on, it's a campus, a place to create, not defend. I'm not here to erase the past. I'm here to repurpose it." The applause this time didn't stop. People clapped, whistled, cheered. Someone shouted, "Welcome, Miss Lewis," and the whole crowd echoed it like an oath. Amara stepped back, taking in the sound, not as a victory, but as confirmation that silence had finally turned into movement. Nia leaned close and said quietly, "You realize they'll write books about this, right?" Amara chuckled under her breath. "Then let the first chapter start here." She looked up through the still clear roof at the grey sky beyond and whispered, "Now let's make them see sunlight." The applause had faded by evening, replaced by the hum of computers and murmurs of reporters still lingering outside the Nova Edge building. What had begun as a revolution inside the walls was now becoming a headline storm across the city. Every network wanted her story, every outlet wanted a soundbite, but not everyone wanted her to succeed. In a sleek office across town, Richard Vane sat in the dim glow of his laptop screen. The blinds were shut. The clock read 9:47 p.m. A single news clip replayed on loop. Amara's calm face at the podium. The words that undid him. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. He slammed the laptop shut. She thinks she's untouchable, he muttered. Across from him sat Paul Everett, 61, his old legal officer, nursing a glass of whiskey. She's not untouchable, Richard. She's exposed. The public loves a story, but they turn fast. All we need is a crack in her armor. Richard leaned forward. Then find one. Paul hesitated. There's talk she used a confidential lender during the takeover. We dig there, maybe something sticks. Richard's eyes glinted. Good. Leak it. Back at Nova Edge, Amara Lewis was still in her office. Midnight lights from the city spilled across her desk. The day's triumph had already faded into the next challenge, keeping what she'd built. Nia Torres, 34, entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. You're still here? Amara didn't look up. You know the answer. Nia set a cup beside her. Then at least drink this. You've got interviews tomorrow, investor calls Thursday, and a meeting with the mayor Friday. Amara finally leaned back. Change doesn't get a day off. Nia smiled faintly. Neither do you. For a moment, silence filled the room. Comfortable, necessary. Then Nia's phone buzzed. Her expression changed. Amara, you need to see this. She turned the screen toward her. A breaking news headline from Finance Pulse Media. Exclusive, sources question legality of Nova Edge's $0 takeover. Possible insider financing under investigation. Amara read it twice. Who leaked it? Anonymous source. But it's spreading fast. Her eyes hardened, not in anger, but focus. Richard? Nia nodded. He's desperate. Good, Amara said quietly. Desperation makes people visible. Before we continue, what do you do when someone tries to ruin what you've built out of pride? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you've ever been targeted for doing something right, you already know how this story feels. Now, back to Amara. By morning, every channel was buzzing. Some analysts praised her genius. Others accused her of manipulation. Stock tickers flashed in alternating colors. Inside Nova Edge, employees whispered in elevators and Slack chats. Do you think it's true? One asked. She'd never cheat, another replied. Amara walked through the main floor without saying a word, every pair of eyes following her. Her posture didn't change. If anything, she walked slower, owning every step. When she reached the press room, Jamal Turner, 31, was waiting. We can draft a response, he said, but they'll spin whatever you say. Amara shook her head. Then we won't say anything yet. Let the facts catch up. But silence might look like guilt. She looked at him, calm but firm, or like confidence. Let them decide which one fits. Meanwhile, across the city, Paul Everett sent another email from a private account. Attached was a falsified memo suggesting Amara had coordinated with an offshore fund. The recipient, a financial blogger with 2 million followers. He poured another drink and muttered, just business. But it wasn't. It was resentment disguised as strategy. By noon, the fake story was trending. Nova Edge scandal. Tac clause 0 fraud. Nia burst into Amara's office. It's bad. They're questioning the legality of the merger. Investors are calling for an emergency audit. Amara didn't flinch. Then we give them one. Nia blinked. You're volunteering for an audit? Transparency isn't a slogan, Nia. It's insurance. Within the hour, Amara called a press conference. The same reporters who had cheered her 24 hours ago now looked hungry for blood. She stood at the podium again, but this time the tone was colder, steelier. You've seen the headlines, she began. You've read the accusations. Let's be clear. Nova Edge operates under full disclosure. Every transaction, every clause, every dollar is on record. Our doors and our data are open. A reporter called out, Are you denying you used outside financing? I'm not denying, she said. I'm inviting. The documents are already uploaded to our public site. Check for yourself. The room went quiet. Accountability isn't a threat, she added. It's a mirror. Upstairs, Denise watched the live stream from her office. She's turning it around, she whispered. Jamal exhaled. She always does. But deep down, both of them knew this was just the beginning. Because outside the building, cameras turned not just toward Amara, but toward the man watching her from across the street. Richard stood under an umbrella, rain running off his shoulders, eyes locked on the glass tower that used to be his. She wants transparency, he murmured. Let's see how much light she can stand. That night, Amara sat alone again, watching the city through her office window. Nia had gone home. The noise of the world had quieted. Her reflection stared back, strong, exhausted, unyielding. "She'll come for me," she whispered to herself. Then, correcting the thought, "No, they will." She turned off the lights and let the skyline's glow fill the room. "Let them," she said softly. "I built this in daylight." The next morning, the world watched. Every business channel, every finance blog, every investor forum. Nova Edge Industrial, under investigation. The headlines were bold, hungry, and impatient. Inside the Nova Edge Tower, the lobby was silent. Reporters were kept behind barriers, cameras flashing through glass doors like impatient lightning. Upstairs on the 40th floor, Amara Lewis sat in the executive conference room surrounded by auditors, legal teams, and her closest staff. This was no ordinary review. It was a full-scale audit, one she had personally invited. Across from her sat Eleanor Wade, 52, senior federal auditor known for her precision and zero tolerance for evasion. "Ms. Lewis," she said, sliding a folder across the table, "will need unrestricted access to your acquisition documents, lender contracts, and internal communications." Amara nodded. "You'll have them. No redactions." Eleanor blinked. "You're not invoking confidentiality." "No reason to," Amara replied. "Truth doesn't need protection." The room went quiet. Even Nia, seated at Amara's right, could feel the weight of that sentence. Eleanor studied her for a beat, then began her work. "Very well. Let's begin." Meanwhile, across town, Richard VANE was pacing his apartment. "She's bluffing," he said. "No CEO volunteers for an audit unless they're hiding something." Paul Everett, his ex-legal officer, didn't look so sure. "You're underestimating her again, Richard. If she's innocent, she just turned the spotlight into armor." Richard glared. "You think she's clean?" "I think she's dangerous because she doesn't flinch," Paul said. Richard snorted. "Then maybe it's time she does." He opened his laptop, scrolled through a private drive, and attached one more file, something even Paul hadn't seen. "If she wants transparency," Richard said, "let's make sure the whole world watches her burn." He clicked send. "Before we continue, tell me something. Have you ever seen someone so sure of the truth that even lies can't touch them? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you've ever been falsely accused but stayed calm anyway, you already know Amara's power." Now back to the story. By late afternoon, the audit room buzzed. Screens filled with spreadsheets, timestamps, digital contracts. Eleanor's team moved like surgeons. One analyst whispered to another, "She's not hiding anything." Amara sat quietly, reviewing every question with the precision of someone who had nothing to conceal. At one point, Eleanor asked, "This offshore fund, Kaleido Partners, was it connected to you?" Amara looked her straight in the eye. "No, but it's connected to someone in this room." Every head turned. She tapped her tablet. The screen on the wall lit up. Emails, transfers, digital signatures. All traced back not to Nova Edge, but to Paul Everett. Nia's eyes widened. "You had this the whole time?" Amara nodded. "Truth takes time to mature." Eleanor leaned forward. "These are verified records?" "Cross-checked with our blockchain system," Amara said. "Every Nova Edge transaction is time-locked and immutable. You can call the servers yourself." Eleanor did. Within minutes her phone buzzed. "Confirmed," she said quietly. Paul paled. "That's impossible. Those files." Amara interrupted. "You leaked a falsified memo claiming I used Kaleido as a lender. What you didn't realize was that Kaleido's compliance system logs the IP address of every upload. Guess whose it was?" Richard's name appeared on the screen next. Paul's voice cracked. "You traced it?" "I didn't have to," Amara said. "You left your initials in the metadata." The silence that followed was surgical. Eleanor's voice came steady. "Mr. Everett, we'll need you to surrender your devices for verification." Paul hesitated. Then, without a word, he stood up, turned toward the door, and found two compliance officers waiting. "Mr. Everett," one said, "please come with us." As they escorted him out, Eleanor turned back to Amara. "This is impressive. You've just turned an audit into an investigation." Amara's tone didn't change. That was always the plan. Outside, the media had no idea what was happening yet, but inside, the dominoes had started to fall. Nia whispered, "You set the trap." Amara nodded once. "They wanted an audit. I gave them one, with receipts." An hour later, Eleanor closed her folder. "We'll issue a preliminary report by morning. But, Miss Lewis, I can say this much. Nova Edge's books are clean. Cleaner than any I've seen." "Thank you." Amara said. "Please make your findings public." Eleanor frowned slightly. "You're not afraid of the spotlight?" Amara smiled. "I built this company under one. Let them see everything." That evening, the report leaked, intentionally this time. Every headline flipped within hours. Audit clears Nova Edge. Former rival executives implicated in fraud. Clause 0 vindicated. CEO Amara Lewis commended for transparency. Social media lit up. Hashtags that once accused her now celebrated her. Nova Edge truth. The audit trap. Down in the Nova Edge lobby, employees gathered around screens, cheering. Jamal lifted his phone, recording the moment. "This is how justice moves," he said. Upstairs, Amara watched from her office window. Naya joined her quietly. "You just flipped an entire scandal in 12 hours. Amara's eyes stayed on the skyline. "Not flipped," she said softly. "Reframed. They built the fire. I turned it into light." Naya smiled. "You think Richard's watching?" "Oh, he's watching," Amara said. "He just doesn't realize he's next." Thunder rolled in the distance, not ominous, but triumphant. Amara leaned back in her chair, folded her hands and said quietly, almost to herself, "You can't bury truth in paperwork. It always finds a signature." The skyline reflected her calm face, illuminated by the glow of a company reborn, one built on silence, strategy and justice, finally revealed in daylight. The next day arrived like judgment. Grey clouds pressed low over the city, mirroring the headlines that now screamed across every screen. Former rival corp executives under federal investigation. Audit clears Nova Edge, whistleblower leaks backfire. By noon, the world had turned. The man who once symbolized corporate dominance was now the headline he feared most. In his penthouse overlooking the skyline, Richard VANE, 54, stood alone. The television played his downfall in endless loops, his name, his voice, his arrogance. Reporters quoted him, replaying the moment he said, "People like you don't run companies like this." The sentence that had started it all. The one line that now defined him. His phone buzzed with messages, former colleagues cutting ties, investors demanding explanations, lawyers offering expensive condolences. He ignored them all. Then came the final notification. A calendar reminder he'd forgotten to delete. Rival board meeting, 3 p.m. He laughed once, bitterly. Might as well attend my own funeral. At exactly 3, he arrived at the Nova Edge building. The same guards who used to salute him now checked his badge, frowned, and escorted him in silence. His access level had been downgraded to visitor. The elevator doors opened onto a new floor he barely recognized. Bright, open, collaborative. Gone were the leather chairs and heavy mahogany. In their place, glass, light, and quiet focus. At the end of the corridor stood Amara Lewis, 32, waiting, calm. White suit, silver pin, expression unreadable. "Mr. VANE," she greeted, "I didn't expect you." "You set me up," he said flatly. "That audit was a trap." She tilted her head slightly. "No, Richard, you set the trap. I just decided who fell into it." They walked into the new boardroom. Denise Hartman, 50, and Nia Torres, 34, were already seated, along with 2 compliance officers and Eleanor Wade, the federal auditor. Richard looked around. "This is what you replaced us with." Amara gestured to the glass walls around them. "Transparency. It's uncomfortable, isn't it?" he sneered. "You think you've won?" "I didn't come here to win," she replied. "I came here to work." He slammed his hand on the table. "You humiliated me publicly. Everything I built was built on exclusion." Amara interrupted softly. "On contracts that punished difference and rewarded obedience. You didn't lose a company, Richard. You lost a monopoly on silence. Before we continue, tell me, have you ever watched someone choke on their own arrogance? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you've ever been underestimated but kept your composure, you know exactly how Amara feels right now." Now back to the room. Eleanor placed a folder on the table. "Mr. VANE, the audit has revealed that your actions and Mr. Everett's directly violated federal securities law. I suggest you retain counsel." Richard's face drained. "You can't pin that on me. Paul handled compliance." Amara leaned forward. "Paul followed your orders. Every transfer, every leak, every lie has your signature on it. We didn't expose you, Richard. You recorded yourself." Denise opened another file. "These are your emails, recovered from the rival servers. You instructed Paul to fabricate documents suggesting Amara used illegal funds. Do you deny that?" Richard's voice faltered. "I was trying to protect my company." Naya said quietly, "You were trying to protect your ego." The words hit harder than any accusation. Amara stood, slow and deliberate. You've spent decades making people like me justify our presence. Today you'll justify yours. She turned to Eleanor. Proceed. Eleanor nodded. Mr. Vane, you're hereby suspended from all executive activities pending investigation. You'll be escorted out immediately. Richard looked around the table, disbelief and fury battling in his eyes. You can't do this. You need me. Amara's expression softened. Not pity, but recognition. That's the problem, Richard. You think leadership means being needed. It doesn't. It means being remembered for the right reasons. 2 security officers entered quietly. Richard didn't fight. He just stood there, trembling, trying to summon the authority that had already evaporated. As he reached the door, he stopped and looked back. You think they'll follow you forever, Amara? The world loves tearing down its heroes. She met his eyes. Then they'll just have to learn to love rebuilding them too. After he left, the room was silent. Denise exhaled. It's over. Amara shook her head. No, now we rebuild what he broke. She walked to the window, looking out over the city. Cranes moving, traffic humming, rain washing the glass clean. This company isn't about vengeance, she said softly. It's about balance. Naya joined her at the glass. What do we call this new chapter? Amara smiled faintly. Justice, in progress. That evening, news cameras caught the image that would define the story. Richard Vane leaving the Nova Edge Tower under grey skies, security on each side, a single flash of lightning behind him. And inside, Amara at her window, calm, illuminated by the skyline, proof that power doesn't shout, it endures. Later that night, Amara stood alone in the boardroom. The lights dimmed automatically at midnight, leaving her reflection on the glass, strong, still, and utterly unafraid. She whispered to herself, they said people like me don't run companies like this. Maybe that's true. Maybe we run them better. Outside, dawn began to rise through the clouds, gold bleeding into silver, sunlight catching on the new Nova Edge sign. The city was watching, and for once, it wasn't doubting. The storm had passed, literally, and not just outside. The next morning, light poured through the glass walls of the Nova Edge Tower, soft, golden, almost symbolic. The city was quiet for once, watching what came next. The front lobby buzzed with reporters again, but the energy was different this time. No scandal, no tension, just curiosity. The woman who'd turned a corporate empire upside down was about to speak, not to defend herself, but to define what came after. Inside, the entire staff gathered. Engineers, designers, custodians, junior analysts, people who'd survived the collapse of Rival Corp and the rebirth into Nova Edge Industrial. They weren't there out of obligation anymore. They were there because something had shifted, the sense that they finally mattered. At the front of the atrium, Amara Lewis stood behind no podium this time. Just open space. No barrier between her and her people. Good morning, she began, voice steady. I know the past few days have been loud, but real change always starts in silence. The crowd listened, rapt. We've removed the corruption, but the real work starts now, rebuilding the culture. We're not just changing how we operate, we're changing who gets to speak, who gets to lead, and who gets to be heard. She gestured toward Jamal Turner, 31, standing near the new communications hub. Jamal here will lead our equity initiative, ensuring that voices once dismissed are now amplified. Jamal nodded, visibly moved. Thank you, Miss Lewis. I'll make sure no one here is ever silenced again. The room erupted in applause. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you've ever believed that justice begins with listening, hit like and share this story. Because this next part, this is how transformation really looks. Now back to Amara. She turned to Denise Hartman, 50, seated beside Nia Torres, 34. Denise will oversee our transparency initiative. Every quarter, open reports, no secrets. We will not hide what we earn or how we spend it. Denise smiled, her tone warm but firm. Accountability doesn't hurt honest people, it protects them. And Nia, Amara continued, will lead operations and innovation, merging human-centered design with clean technology. We're building something that lasts longer than any headline. Nia grinned. And I already told the contractors, no dark boardrooms, everything open, bright, collaborative. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Amara nodded. Exactly. Power doesn't belong in corners. As she spoke, cameras rolled, not for the news, but for the internal stream being shared worldwide to Nova Edge's new offices in Lagos, Berlin, São Paulo, and Oakland. What had started as one woman's stand against discrimination had become a global template for reform. This company, she said, will be defined by 3 values: dignity, clarity, and courage. Dignity, because every worker deserves respect. Clarity, because truth doesn't hide behind jargon. And courage, because sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone until others catch up. Her words hung there still, powerful. Then Amara did something unexpected. She stepped down from the platform, walked directly into the crowd, and began shaking hands, one by one. Not a gesture for cameras, but something human, grounding. A janitor named Samuel Wright, 45, spoke up again. "Ms. Lewis, I never thought I'd live to see someone like you running this place." Amara smiled softly. "Then let's make sure the next generation doesn't have to say that." Outside, the skyline shimmered. On the building's facade, workers were carefully mounting a new line of text beneath the Nova Edge logo, "Powered by Justice." It was bold, it was audacious, and it was earned. Meanwhile, in a smaller office 2 floors below, Eleanor Wade, the federal auditor, packed up her notes. She looked out at the crowd and shook her head with a rare smile. "I've audited hundreds of companies," she said quietly to Nia, who'd come to thank her. "But this is the first time I've seen one reborn." Nia replied, "We didn't just rebuild a company, we rebuilt belief." Eleanor nodded. "Keep it that way." Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed and the reporters packed up, Amara stood alone by the massive glass windows of her office. The city was glowing again, no longer hostile, just alive. Nia entered softly. "You did it." Amara didn't turn around. "No," she said, "we did. I just lit the fuse." She paused. "Tomorrow they'll start new rumors. That's fine. Let them. The truth will always outrun gossip if you walk fast enough." Nia chuckled. "You really believe that?" Amara turned, smiling. "I don't need to believe it. I built a company to prove it." As the camera panned out through the glass facade, the city reflected across the Nova Edge logo, a final voiceover echoed her closing words. "Power isn't inherited. It's earned through clarity, guarded by truth, and amplified through dignity. And when the world tells you to know your place, remember, your place might just be at the head of the table." The lights dimmed across the floor, leaving only one steady glow from her office, a symbol of resilience in a skyline that had finally learned what respect looked like. 2 months later, the world had caught up. Nova Edge wasn't just a company anymore. It was a movement. Headlines had shifted from scandal to study. Business schools analyzed the Clause Zero revolution. Universities invited Amara Lewis to speak about ethical leadership. And on social media, her quote, "Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy," had become a global mantra. But Amara wasn't celebrating. She was working. It was 6 a.m. in Oakland, California. The new Nova Edge global hub. Sunlight slid through the floor-to-ceiling glass as Amara reviewed reports. Revenue was up 240%, employee retention had doubled. And yet she looked tired, not weak, weighted. Nia Torres, 34, entered carrying 2 coffees. "You haven't slept again, have you?" Amara gave a faint smile. "Sleep is a luxury. Progress isn't." "Progress doesn't mean burnout," Nia said gently. "Even revolutionaries need REM cycles." Amara laughed quietly. "Revolutionaries don't get those either." Nia placed a folder on her desk. "You've been invited to the Global Innovation Summit in Geneva. Keynote spot. They want you to talk about transparency and power." Amara looked up. "They used to call me a disruptor. Now they want a lecture on integrity." "That's progress," Nia said. "No," Amara corrected softly. "That's irony." Downstairs, the morning briefing began. Screens showed live feeds from Nova Edge's new offices. Lagos, São Paulo, Berlin, Tokyo. Faces of every color, every accent, connected in real time. Jamal Turner, 31, led the call. "Good morning, team. Today's agenda: new mentorship initiative for minority engineers, expansion of solar glass production, and..." He stopped as Amara entered the room. Instant silence. Respect, not fear. Amara smiled slightly. "Don't stop. This isn't inspection, it's collaboration." She took a seat among them, not above them. "Our legacy isn't in what we build," she said. "It's in who gets to build next." The phrase hit home. Jamal nodded, repeating it quietly. "Who gets to build next?" Before we continue, take a moment. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, because this next part, it's not about winning a fight. It's about what comes after victory. And if you've ever rebuilt something after being underestimated, this one's for you. That afternoon, Amara and Naya attended a video call with world leaders and CEOs. The topic, corporate ethics in emerging economies. A familiar face appeared on the screen, Richard VANE, 54. Not in a suit this time, but a modest shirt, appearing as an independent consultant. The room went cold. "Ms. Lewis," he said, voice tight but civil, "congratulations on your success." Amara met his eyes through the camera. "Mr. VANE, I wasn't aware you were still consulting." He forced a smile. "I believe redemption requires work." "Then we agree on something," she said. "Just make sure your work includes reflection." A few muted chuckles rippled through the call. Richard's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. After the meeting ended, Naya exhaled. "You handled that beautifully." Amara shrugged. "You don't fight ghosts. You outlast them." In the weeks that followed, Nova Edge's new policies began to ripple globally. Companies in New York, London, Nairobi and Seoul announced Clause Zero initiatives, reforms modelled after Amara's framework for equity and accountability. The press called it the Nova Edge Standard. But with fame came friction. Critics claimed she was politicizing business. Others accused her of being too moral for capitalism. Amara addressed it only once at a press conference in D.C. Morality isn't a limitation, it's a compass, and capitalism without direction is just chaos with better lighting. The quote went viral again. One evening, as the sun set over the bay, Amara stood on the rooftop terrace with Denise Hartman, 50. The older woman sipped tea, watching the lights come on across the city. "You know," Denise said, "I used to think ethics and profit couldn't share a sentence. You prove they can share a balance sheet." Amara smiled. "We're not done yet." "You may not be," Denise said, "but you've already made something permanent. Every woman who walks into a boardroom now carries your shadow and your light." Amara looked out at the skyline. "Then let's make sure it's a light they can stand under, not hide from." Later that night, alone in her office, Amara scrolled through an internal report. Employee demographics, 60% increase in diverse leadership roles. Wage gap, reduced by 41%. Employee satisfaction, record high. She leaned back, eyes tired but peaceful. "Legacy," she whispered, "isn't what they remember you for. It's what they can continue without you." She looked up at the glowing Nova Edge logo outside her window, bright against the night sky. The camera panned back, revealing the city below. Glass towers, electric trains, streets alive with movement. Somewhere down there, a young girl, black, brilliant, unseen, was watching her story on a cracked phone screen, whispering, "Someday that'll be me." And for the first time in history, she'd be right. Night draped over the city like silk. The skyline pulsed with the rhythm of 1,000 lights, each one a promise fulfilled. From her corner office, Amara Lewis stood alone, watching her reflection dissolve into the glass, half woman, half movement. It had been a year since the takeover. Nova Edge Industrial wasn't just profitable, it was transformational. The world had watched her fight, then watched her rebuild. And now, quietly, they were following her blueprint. A framed newspaper on her desk read, "The Woman Who Changed How Power Speaks." She smiled faintly, remembering how it started, a torn piece of paper, a sentence meant to humiliate her. "You people don't run companies like this." That insult had become her ignition. Behind her, Nia Torres stepped in, carrying a glass of sparkling water instead of champagne. "Press is gone. The last documentary crew wrapped up." "Good," Amara said. "Let the story rest for a while. It's time people start writing their own." Nia leaned against the doorframe. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Amara looked back at her. "Always." Downstairs, the office buzzed softly. Engineers wrapping up prototypes, night crews polishing the solar glass floors that shimmered faintly under the city lights. The walls carried framed quotes from her early speeches. "Transparency isn't a threat, it's a mirror. Justice doesn't shout, it endures." Jamal Turner, now 32, walked through the hall, tablet in hand, stopping to look at those words. He whispered to himself, "She really did it." Then, with a smile, "Now it's our turn." "Before we continue, tell me something. Have you ever watched a story come full circle? The insult becomes the legacy. The silence becomes the anthem. If you believe in that kind of justice, drop your city in the comments below. This story might end here, but its echo belongs to you. Now back to Amara. The rooftop garden swayed in the evening wind. From here, the city looked alive. Cranes moving, trains gliding, people walking under the glow of Nova Edge solar panels. Every watt of light below her came from the same technology that once got her laughed out of rooms. Naya joined her. "The new mentorship program's full," she said. 5,000 applications in 24 hours. Amara's eyes softened. That's 5,000 futures no one can ignore. They stood in silence for a while. The world below them pulsed with quiet electricity, the kind born not from power, but from purpose. In the distance thunder rolled, not storm, but the low hum of construction, of cities still being rebuilt. Nia turned to her. "You ever regret anything?" Amara smiled faintly. "Only the years I wasted trying to fit in rooms I should have been redesigning." Nia laughed softly. "That's going on a wall somewhere." Amara shook her head. "Let it live in action, not on plaques." Later, in her office, she sat one last time behind her desk, not as a throne, but as a checkpoint. Her reflection on the glass merged with the lights of the city, and her voice became a quiet narration, like a closing note in a film. "I used to think power meant control. Then I learned it means clarity. The moment you stop fighting to be seen and start creating things that can't be ignored, that's when you own the room." They said dignity was quiet. They were right. But quiet doesn't mean invisible. Quiet can shake the walls if you know how to listen. She glanced at a small photo on her desk. Her younger self, in a cheap suit, holding her first patent certificate. Next to it, a handwritten note she'd received from a young intern that morning. "Thank you for showing me we don't have to ask for permission to exist." Amara traced the words with her fingers. "That," she whispered, "is legacy." As she left the building, the security guard, an older man named Henry, 59, nodded respectfully. "Good night, Miss Lewis," she smiled. "Good night, Henry. Keep the light steady." Outside, the street shimmered under the glow of Nova Edge panels, running clean on her company's energy. She paused for a moment, looking up at the new sign, Nova Edge, powered by justice. Her driver, Caleb, 38, waited beside the car. "Back to the penthouse?" Amara shook her head. "No, take me to Eastlake Avenue." He frowned. "That's the old rival building." "I know," she said. "It's time I walked through it one last time." Minutes later she stepped into the abandoned lobby. Dust, echoes, faint traces of the empire that once tried to erase her. The marble floor still bore the faded outline of the old name, Rival Corp. Amara knelt, ran her hand across the carved letters and whispered, "Thank you for doubting me." Then she stood, straightened her coat, and walked away. As she exited, dawn was beginning to break, soft orange against glass towers. Her silhouette crossed the street just as the rising sun caught the Nova Edge logo, scattering light in every direction. Her final voiceover carried over the scene. "Some stories end with applause. Others end with awareness. Mine ends where it began, with a woman walking into a room she wasn't supposed to enter and leaving it changed forever." The screen faded to black. Justice doesn't need permission. Inspired by true events.